The Brutalizador de Sao Paulo. Before I start this narration, let me explain something about Brazil. It's a big country, and because of this, there are various levels of police agencies with different tasks and functions. In this story, we will be dealing with the Polícia Civil and the Polícia Federal. The Polícia Civil, or just Polícia, deals with the day-to-day crimes inside of their own state. So you could call them the everyday police officers you see in the streets. While the Polícia Federal deals with the country's borders, they prevent the entry of drugs, weapons, and other contraband, but also are responsible for crimes that affect the whole country. It's well known that Brazil is not the safest place in the world. Violent murders happen on a daily basis, and robberies are even more common. But during the years 1999 and 2000, there were a series of murders which stood out for reasons you will soon hear and remained unsolved. It started on October 4th, 1999, when a bus driver reported the body of a woman on a highway in Sao Paulo. Police identified her as Maria da Silva. Maria had been stabbed in her eye. Whatever stabbed her penetrated out the other side of her head. The responding officer said you could see the road through the hole. Police suspected that the Primeiro Comando da Capital, one of, if not the largest Brazilian criminal organization, were responsible, as Maria's husband was known to have drug-related deaths. To add to the suspicions, Maria's husband was nowhere to be found, and despite a lack of proof, the case was considered solved. On October 13, 1999, a body was recovered from the Tietê River. The man's face was completely cut off. The brain and tongue were removed from his head. He was identified as Carlos da Silva, Maria's husband, and this only fueled the suspicion that the Primeiro Comando da Capital was in fact responsible, so the case was closed. On December 17th, hikers reported a gruesome murder in the Atlantic forest. Antonio Rodrigues was found with his stomach cut open and intestines dangling off the tree branches. Police could not find a motive, and this was the first time that the Polícia Federal took over the investigation. Antonio was described as the nicest man in Sao Paulo. No murder weapon was ever found, and there were no suspects. The Polícia Federal asked the public for leads, but it was to no avail. Things cooled down after Antonio's murder, and the Polícia Federal had to close the case. On April 2nd of the year 2000, two teenagers exploring an abandoned factory reported a body in the parking lot. Police identified him as Canadian businessman David Williams, who was in Brazil to negotiate foreign business deals. The public has started seeing the connection between all these murders, and the killer received the nickname O Brutalizador de Sao Paulo, or the Sao Paulo Brutalizer. The fact that the Polícia Federal took control of the investigation once again made the suspicions worse. David was torn in half, and all his innards were lying on the ground. His eyes were never found. At first, it was suspected that it was a mugging gone wrong, but that was ruled out due to the graphic nature of the killing and the fact that no money was stolen. His body was returned to Canada. On June 9th, year 2000, the last of the murders happened. Police responded to an abandoned bus blocking the highway. When they boarded, the driver, José Filpo, was alone and huddled in a corner in the back of the bus, mumbling to himself. José attacked one of the responding officers and had to be shot. He survived, however, was diagnosed with PTSD and sent to a mental institution. Police soon found out what drove him to that. Further up the road, organs were scattered all over the highway, including a human fetus. The Polícia Federal took over the investigation again and determined that the organs belonged to the 26 passengers who had boarded the bus. This was by far the most gruesome murder yet. A passenger manifest brought up no suspects. The massacre shocked Brazil, but got little media coverage outside of South America. The Polícia Federal was determined to catch whoever was responsible. They reviewed the bus's CCTV footage, but never released it. All who viewed them declined any interviews and disappeared soon after. In 2003, the Brutalizador de Sao Paulo case was officially closed. After the third murder, the Primeiro Comando da Capital were no longer considered suspects. 5 investigators from the Polícia Federal went missing after viewing the bus's CCTV footage. The Brazilian government was accused of covering up details of the case, but all that came out of this was that riot police got paid overtime. The case was eventually forgotten to history. Now, I bet you're expecting some bullshit that I was the killer and ready to get back to work, blah blah blah. But no. I emigrated to Argentina in 2005. After seeing that thing, I just didn't feel safe in Brazil. I came face to face with the Brutalizador de Sao Paulo and survived. I can't tell you how, but what I can tell you is that it wasn't human. Do you really think a human or even several humans could do what that thing did? The Brazilian government is covering this up. I don't want to die. I'm safe from that creature here, and the Polícia Federal have no jurisdiction in Argentina. Right? I bought a shotgun just in case. If I die, I'm taking someone with me. I am not going down easy. Please don't wander the forest outside São Paulo. In fact, avoid that damn state in general. I'm safe in Argentina, for now. But I have to go back to Brazil to visit my family from time to time. I can't just abandon them. I know the government will catch up with me someday. But I just had to get the truth out. And if you don't believe me and decide to go to São Paulo anyway, please be armed. You'll need it against more than just gang violence.